My theme is more disconnections, geological disconnections. It does come out quite well. I think everyone here will recognise that's the Alpine Fault in the South Island, known as the longest natural observable straight line in the world, observable from space. And with the snow on the Alps, you can see that it's quite clearly straight. What you might not know, and this is not really a sergeant's finding session, it's more a session paying for little tidbits of information you might not have known. 600 metres long, 600 kilometres long. It's moving at a world record pace of 3 metres every 100 years, which apparently is extremely quick and is causing concern about possible earthquakes. The Southern Alps uplifted 20 kilometres in 12 million years, which apparently is also very quick. But the erosion rate is so rapid that they failed to get above 4 kilometres at any one point in time. So they grow a bit, then erode a bit. So that's just a little bit of information about New Zealand. Now this photograph is my wonderful wife Mary standing at Backsand Beach. And that little beach is in Eshness, which is the north left-hand side of Shetland Islands. So I'm just curious to know, how many people here, show of hands, have been to the Shetland Islands? Russ? Oh, yeah, a few people. It's a wonderful little place to go to if you're short of places to visit. Now, where's Peter Travis from Union? Right. Now, what's interesting about this photograph is that on Mary to the right is a large granite wall that goes right out into the sea. It's not visible. But where she's standing is schist, and the gap in between is a fault line. And the point she's standing on, at one point where she was, has moved downwards towards the equator, the Arctic circles to the north. So that where she's standing has moved, I've got to get this right, 65 kilometres that way, and the wall in front there has moved 170 kilometres up from towards the Orkneys. So there's been a huge displacement, and the fault itself is called the Wall's Boundary Fault, which you probably don't know, and it was active in the Devonian period and in the Jurassic. I'll tell you about that later. So we found this absolutely fascinating. You can track it through the land and it goes out to sea and disappears. So, has anyone seen the monster in Loch Ness? You get fined if you have, because you've been having too much whiskey. So that's Loch Ness, and I think probably most people are aware of the Great Glen Fault that divides Scotland. Loch Lochy in the south and Loch Ness connected, and it's a great big fault line. It's one of the most sort of well-known fault lines in the world, I suppose you'd say. Right, so okay, moving to the next one. This is a little interesting photograph. I should have a pointer somewhere. Is there a pointer?
It's red. Yes, there at the top is.
I can't see it. That's no good. Back to that one. Oh, there it is, red. Yeah, got it. Yeah, colourblind. Right, so we started off way up there. The line goes down. Whoops,
You're losing a little fault line there, Duncan.
Sorry, mate. I hate these things. I'm going to use it, not going to use it. Right, so you can see the WBF, Wall's Boundary Fault, comes down and just joins on to the Great Glen Fault, which is this one, down here. So that's part of the same fault system. Now, the Great Glen Fault comes down through the bottom of Mull, and then Colonsay, the line of there. And sadly, it goes through the middle of Isla. And so the Bowmore Distillery is on this bit, and the Brook Laddie is on the other side. So they're on each side of the fault, temporarily opposite each other, but in years to come, they're going to move further and further apart. But it also keeps on going. And it goes through the top of Ireland, and it goes through Donegal Bay. Now, this photograph doesn't show it, but in fact it goes out to sea. It just curves just gently to the left out to sea. I found this quite fascinating. It's part of quite a large movement like this. Now for something completely different. This is the St Croix River, and it's a little river that feeds into the top of the Mississippi, and it comes down just below Lake Michigan, to the left of and down below Lake Michigan. It was formed about 12 million years ago. The valley started. Most of its life, I would have been 30 metres underwater where I was standing. But the interesting thing about this is that when the massive ice over Canada melted 12 million years ago, the water from the melt came straight down through here. And what is very hard to imagine, and I'll just show you a bigger picture, we're actually talking about the area just up there and in Michigan. And the water came down in great floods, and at times the flood was a mile deep. It's hard to imagine, 1,500 metres for the youngsters, deep water flooding down, and it just kept on going till it got to the sea. And it was over 100 kilometres wide, some of these big floods. It caused a lot of chaos. Now the interesting thing is that the ice blocked the St Lawrence River, and I think most of you will be aware what that is, if I can get the pointer to work. There we go. That's up through here. Right? So, sorry. There we go, St Lawrence River. The ice blocked it, but at a point in time the ice thawed sufficiently for the water to be able to flow out the St Lawrence River. At that point, the Mississippi went back to being a normal river, and all the water from the ice melting went through all the lakes and entered in Lake Erie and down through a fault system, Erie, Ontario, the St Lawrence Fault, straight up there. And the water went straight out, formed Niagara Falls, etc., and stopped doing damage in the middle, though they do still get terrible floods down to New Orleans. What is most interesting to finish with is that the fault that started in Shetland goes down through Scotland, out through Ireland, goes through the Atlantic, under the mid-Atlantic rift, and comes back onto land here, and this is the same fault that we started off in Shetland with.